So I'm hoping that people have trickled back in with their glass of wine or whatever it is that you need at this time of day, a little snack so that we can get to our Zoom reception. I don't drink wine anymore. I've got tea. Me. So I have that. I can toast with my tea. So I've had people, it's going to be hard to fit everybody's. The way we're going to do the reception is people are going to do toasts. I solicited toasts earlier in the conference, and so I actually have already an incredibly long list. So if you solicited me and we don't get to you, I'm so sorry. So what I'm also going to have the organizers do is put some information in the chat for everybody with an email to our conference email, because if you wanted to say something and you don't get a chance to say something before 6 p.m. today, we would really love it if you take a minute to write it down and send it in the form of an email to us so that we can pass it on to Shayla. Stefan has just put that email in the dialogue. It would just be really special. Or even if you do say it out loud and you want to write it down as something that she can keep, that would be lovely. Okay, so I am going to take host's prerogative and I'm going to just say a very short toast to begin with. I want to toast the lady of the hour who has been trekking across the Berkshires, making sure she has the internet today, and who we're celebrating. You know, we started this planning this conference in 2017, believe it or not. There was a group of us back then, including Blake Emerson and Turku, Ezekiel, and Stefan was on board then, and there have just been so many people involved over time. Nishan and Nika have obviously been like totally key with this, but there have been other voices at different times coming in and helping us, even Jim Sleeper, Shayla's husband, who's been an excellent source of inside information when we needed it. But the point is that the reason that we started planning this so long ago and why so many people showed up from all over the world today is because of the impact that you've made on our lives and in the community of political theory. And it really is something I'm honored to be a part of celebrating. I think it's important. And so I'll share, one very short memory, which is I had also the honor this would have been around 2011. Shayla did a small, almost secret Hegel seminar because she could only handle so many students. So it was by invite only. I was very excited to get an invite to this Hegel seminar. And at night times at it was like 8 p.m., we would hold this seminar in the Poli-Sci building at Yale. And we would go in and read, the phenomenology of spirit line by line together. And for me, that experience of doing that with you was the most intellectually exciting, moment of my life. It was just felt like I was there. I was with the big ideas, and you brought the big ideas to us, and really with that precision. And I remember times in lectures where you would be reciting word for word components of Kant's transcendental deduction. And I was like, this is amazing. I want to be the person who can recite Kant's transcendental arguments word for word. I mean, is so exciting. And so those are the memories, and there are so many more. You've heard me speak about it before. You've been involved in my life and my children's life, and you've supported female graduate students and those of us that are mothers and stuff, and so many fabulous memories. And it just warms my heart to see everybody here today to celebrate that. So I'm cheersing to you, everybody, a toast to Shayla Ben-Habib and her impact on all of us. And then I am going to go down my list according to it's partially ordered based on if people are in Europe and how soon they have to get off. So I'm going to go first to the person I know is in Europe, and that's Carmen Dega, who would like to say a few words. Oh, Shayla, I forgot to let you say a few words.
No, it's fine. Let me listen. I miss everyone. I'll say something at the end. It's fine.
Okay, at the end. Perfect. Okay.
All right. Is this really happening? Okay, good. Let me just get back to to the gallery view. Okay, perfect. Great, Professor Benabi, that you're back. Wonderful. So we talked a lot about your intellectual achievements and our own relationships to you. I want to toast now to your ability to cultivate an environment of learning that I experienced as extremely diverse. It was a truly communicative enterprise. So during my time at Yale, there were Kantians and Hegelians, those that believed in rationality and those that believed this would mark the death of critique, those that identified with the early Frankfurt School, those that identified with the late Frankfurt School. And the discussion between these camps did not only continue outside the university, in coffee shops and in bars after conferences, on the phone and at birthday parties, they also took place in your dissertation colloquiums. It was us and you. We were a group also, right? So what Patchen earlier said about the student with the baseball cap, oftentimes we were those students with the baseball cap. And what you weren't there, but Matt introduced he said it perfectly well at the beginning of his presentation. He was basically giving a presentation in defense of the law. And he said at the beginning that he arrived not as a great believer in the emancipatory potential of the law. And I think that kind of intellectual journey was only possible because you allowed so many of us to come together, in our own self-centered ways and learn from each other and become more humble and also fail and learn again, to learn what it means to learn, as Caroline Emke put it so nicely. So thank you for creating this diverse space in which we laughed, clashed, and simply enjoyed ourselves. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Fabulous. Okay, I'm going to send it over to Sonali. Can we send it to Sonali? Sonali,
Yeah,
are you here?
I'm here.
Yep.
Yep.
There she is.
And I just want to share something on the screen. Okay, so this is Hannah Arendt's gravestone, and it is a reminder of a field trip we took with Shayla's class. Guy was there, Christian was there, Shatima was there, Kush. We all piled into the cars and we went to Bard College. And I remember standing at Hannah Arendt's grave, and Shayla placed a rock on the gravestone. And I remember feeling very happy to be part of a matrilineal legacy of political theorists. One of the things I've come to really appreciate about this legacy from Shayla and also from Arendt is Shayla's commitment to scholarship, even when it clashes with what political allies or people on the left want her to say or want the argument to be. She's shown me what clarity of intellectual vision really means. And I wanted to also share a poem that by Frank Vedart called Advice to the Players. And the Arendtian and Marxist elements of making in this poem really made me think of Shayla. There is something missing in our vision of a human being, the need to make. We are creatures who need to make. Because existence is willy-nilly thrust into our hands, our fate is to make something. If nothing else, the shape cut by the arc of our lives. Making is the mirror in which we see ourselves. But being is making, not only large things, a family, a book, a business, but the shape we give this afternoon, a conversation between two friends, a meal. Thank you, Shayla.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay. All right. Okay. So we're going next to, do we have Adam Getachew here? Can we get her in?
In a regular class.
Yeah.
I'm here.
Okay, Adam.
Great. Thank you. First, I just want to thank the organizers, Anna, Stefan, Nishan, and Nika, for an amazing conference, for putting this together. It's been an honor to listen and participate and hear the many, many legacies of Professor Ben-Habib's work and the ways it's reflected in such a large intellectual community. I just want to raise one part of her legacy that has been most important to me. Shayla has helped to expand the boundaries of what political theory is and who gets to do political theory through her teaching and her mentorship and advising. Myself, Brandon Terry, Shatima Threadcraft, Robert Gooding Williams are all people who have worked in Black political thought, and which may appear far from, Shayla's own training and thinking from the Frankfurt School, but she has supported all of us and made it possible for us to do our work in political theory by integrating us into her classes, into her seminars. I was a part of that secret Hegel seminar and being part of a kind of intellectual community. And this is a moment where the discipline as a whole is thinking about how to diversify, how to think about representation within the field. And I want to thank you, Shayla, for modeling how one might do that through their teaching and mentorship.
Thank you. Can I say something?
Yes, absolutely. That was lovely, Adon.
Because I just feel, a bit, mentoring and parenting are related, right? And at some point in my academic career, I decided I did not like administration. Not because I wasn't a good administrator. I'm enough of a Turk, also educated in Germany, to know how to be a good administrator. I did not like administration of egos. It just like academic politics, was not my vision of the world. And so when I had the options and so on, I pushed them away. And I chose the commitment to mentoring. And for many of us, and for many of you, you will see, you're all very brilliant. Many of you are placed in excellent institutions. The choice will face you at some point. Where do you want to go? And for me, mentoring is this. I don't want to drive this parenting metaphor too far, because it is really, many of you have come to my room with an idea, okay? And over the years, to see this idea flourishing has been astonishing. It's been astonishing. And many of you have taught me. I'm thinking, I don't want to put anybody on the spot here, but all of you helped me think so much further with the work that you have done. Sonali had this idea with going to South Africa with Truth and Reconciliation Commissions. Turcular was struggling with the problem of cosmopolitanism in the European Union, and she was deflating my illusions about the European Union. And Adom, the work that you did about this cosmopolitan other discussion in the countries that were emancipating themselves in the Caribbean, the idea of a new economic policy. I learned about this. I didn't know beans about this before I read your book. I had some historical idea. And I'm sorry that Shatima doesn't seem to be here, but when Shatima reread Hannah Arendt's concept of the distinction between the private and the public in the light of Black woman's reappropriation of the value of the private, a light bulb went off in my head. Those of us who are complaining about the private sphere, it's just like, Black women are not suburban oppressed white women trying. For them, the right to have a private sphere is so absolutely significant. So I could go on and on. And Bob Gooding Williams, by the way, who was both my student and my friend, and who is now having a hip operation, he couldn't join us, so let us wish him well. Bob is someone who was with me in Hegel's philosophy of right courses. And as we know, the interaction actually between this recovery of what you're calling Black political thought and moments of European political thought is much deeper, right? And Bob's work is a wonderful testimonial to that, with Du Bois, who knew Du Bois had attended Hegel's classes? And what was the significance of Hegel's work, the concept of the Volksgeist for Du Bois?
So we're sitting in Du Bois's workplace. Right?
Yes. So there are really, this is an exciting moment actually in political philosophy. We learn what we never knew, and I'm so grateful to all of you, not only for what I gave, but for what you have given me, and I mean this seriously.
All right, wonderful. Okay, so I'm still actually going to get a few more students in the mix, but I'd love to hear some toasts from, well, now former colleagues, but colleagues, people who've worked with you. So I'm going to invite Andrew March to say a toast, and then we'll do Karuna if she's here.
Hi, Shayla.
Hey, Andrew, are you there? Where
I'm right here. Yes, and sort of the universal everywhere. Congratulations on a well-deserved transition to a new phase of your career, and to all of these wonderful, wonderful tributes to you today. I'll be very, very brief. You have dozens of former PhD students at the highest echelons of the profession. Many of them were here today. You have lots of former colleagues from all parts of from your career. I want to say something very, very briefly. I may be the only former junior colleague here, and I want to say that as we move through life and as we move through our professional career, we become who we are partially through exemplars. And lots of times those are through negative exemplars. I think a lot of us have the experience of going through not just academia, but particularly academia, and saying, I didn't like that. Or if I'm ever in that position, I hope I never become that person. I hope I'm never that person to be indifferent, to be sort of consumed with my own importance. We see far too many of those kinds of people. There are far fewer positive exemplars. It's far fewer. It's much more rare to say, if I'm ever in a particular position, I hope that I have this person's moral qualities as well as intellectual qualities. And note how many of your former graduate students are here, how many peers are here. Every single person is somebody that you have made to feel bigger than perhaps they meant to be at that time. And that was always my experience with you over the 10 or 11 years that we were colleagues. From the first day that I gave a job talk at Yale, you came and you held my hand for what seemed like 90 seconds in a very, very sort of compassionate way. We were in Istanbul together with Habermas, with countless people that I didn't even imagine that I would be in the room with. And you made me give the toast. You made me get up there and speak in front of people. We sat out there till 1 or 2 in the morning drinking white wine. I never drink white wine with Habermas. But there are times in which people find it very, very easy to forget that other people's lives are not just a sort of passing professional sort of annoyance or hindrance or something like that, that there are real stakes and real costs, whether it's a graduate student who is going through motherhood or is going through some other kind of very, very difficult thing. And for all of your extraordinary professional accomplishments, one of the things that I heard over and over today, and something that I want to echo from my own personal, particular, concrete perspective, is the way in which you have an extraordinary ability to extend generosity and to remember that people are going through things in their lives that are extremely important to them and that have extremely important consequences. And you have an extraordinary ability to not only make people feel that they matter, but also to do things at great cost to yourself to advance their interests. And I will never, ever, ever, ever forget the things that you have done for me, the extraordinary efforts that you extended on my behalf at considerable cost. And once again, we learn through exemplars. And I will always ask myself, if I'm ever in a position where other people's well-being or future depends on me, what would Shayla have done in this situation? And I just want you to know how much affection I have for you. I don't know where Jim is right now, but I want to extend my love to Jim. Yes, and you deserve every single bit of the recognition and the love and the affection that you're getting today. And pretty soon after all of this, I'll be able to say it again in person to you.
Thank you, my dear. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Karuna, how about a few words from you?
Okay, great. I'm going to echo a little bit of what Andrew and Adam said. Shayla, of course, I have been lucky to be with you at 3 institutions. So for most of our intellectual lives, Shayla was a teacher and advisor at Harvard, a mentor and cherished colleague at Yale for many years, and now at Columbia. I just want to echo literally what Andrew just said. When I first met Shayla at Harvard, I just had such admiration for her as a person. And I think we saw it today. She just combines this extraordinary, her work and her person reflect moral and political seriousness, intellectual sophistication, clarity, and integrity. And I think it's, again, in her character as well as her work. And I one of the things I always admired is how, and I try to emulate, but can't with the same grace, she immediately elevates every conversation. I don't remember a workshop in which she didn't cut through the BS of questions with just getting to the heart of a question. I always could just wait to hear her say it. And at every workshop dinner also, if any conversation became a little bit too gossipy or flippant, Shayla was there to elevate it. She didn't want to waste, I think, a single opportunity to not get a group of people to think together about the most urgent political questions of the day. And we saw a perfect example today. She's unruffleable. She gave the most serious talk in the middle of a parking lot today. So it was amazing. And I just want to echo one last point, as having actually been, in a way, the most cherished relationship I've had with Shayla amongst all of these is a wonderful colleague. And and we've heard a little bit. I mean, I think one of the great, when people ask me of what I cherish most, is Shayla was an amazing advisor to me, but more importantly, just seeing her be a co-advisor to a number of these incredible students, the wonderful students who put together this conference. Shayla is challenging, demanding, sometimes intimidating, but all in a good way. And I think in the best sense of those words, she pushes one to make your work better, clearer, and more persuasive. And I think that is coupled with this incredible openness in support of new topics, new methods, new literatures that she's open to learning from. So I do think, a phrase that someone used earlier, Shayla is always uncompromising in her support of new voices in the field. And I think looking backwards and forwards, I think you see Shayla's, of course, enormous influence in extending the conversation of critical theory. But as Ada mentioned, I think really reshaping political theory as a field with a number of students that she's touched that are diverse perspectives beyond what one would expect Shayla's core interest to be. And I think for me, the thing that's elegant about it all is she did it very quietly, without fanfare, without a soapbox. And I think just with this, in a sense, an offshoot of her character and what I think she takes to be the vocation of intellectual life. So it's wonderful to have been a part of that journey and to continue it here in New York. Well, we will definitely make a grand toast in person soon.
Thank you, thank you. I know there are other people, but I do want to say something both to Andrew and Karuna. Scholarship, right? I remember a faculty discussion at Yale when at some point I was presenting Andrew's work, and I said he knows both modern and classical Arabic. It was modern and classical Arabic. I mean, really? I mean, what is the distinction, right? I mean, there's modern Greek and there is classical Greek. They are not the same. You have to spend years. You have to immerse yourself, right? And I have to say now, at the stage that I'm at, sometimes the closure that main institutions in our world, right? The closure that you can find, the smart closure that you can also find in the Ivy League is astonishing. And, with Karuna's first book, when, she goes to status contract, we're talking about Sir Henry Maine, Aisha, a colleague says, was it status to contract or contract to status? This is not, this is just Henry Maine beginning. But what I want to say, and maybe this is the Germanic tradition in me, be uncompromising in your scholarship. They will come around. Okay? And I think that you both, so many of you are sort of cutting this new pathway, and with your work on classical Islamic conceptions of sovereignty, and Karuna, you retrieving Gandhi as a political thinker and not just as a strategist and as a great political person. It's not easy. It's not easy, and I just want to say persevere. There are no shortcuts in scholarship, and I just think that stick to your guns, or stick to something. Stick to your footnotes. Stick to your books or whatever. But I really appreciated this aspect of your work as well.
Thank you. So next, I want to go to somebody who was a student, but then crossed into the boundary of family member. So we'll have Blake Emerson say a word before.
My daughter.
And there's Laura too. And before you guys say a word, I just want to remind everybody, our time is running short. I'm so sorry if I don't get to you if you ask to do a toast. We're not going to have time to get to everybody. So I just want to take this moment again to please encourage you, if we don't get to you, to write those comments to the conference email so that we can still share them with Shayla, because trust me, she will want to see them. And so we'd really appreciate that. Okay, Blake.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Shayla. So I'll keep it quick. There are so many wonderful things to say about Shayla that have already been said, but one thing I wanted to emphasize from my own experience was how much I've learned about understanding the law from working with Shayla that I didn't, and I don't think could have learned from the law professors who I worked with. That on the one hand, law is something that guarantees certain basic aspects of moral personhood. That's the be a person and respect others as persons idea that Hegel articulated. But then on the other hand, it's also a practice. It's something that we do together, and it's something that we make by listening to one another. And grasping that duality between something that is basic and essential that underlies who we are and something that we generate together is something that I really could only grasp by learning from Shayla, and it's just shaped my entire perspective. And it's something that I try to teach my law students, every semester. So I'm really grateful for that. And I just wanted to also just let Laura say a few words also.
Sure, I'm going to take the privilege of being the honored daughter to be able to say a few words, even though I obviously know Shayla in a very different context than
the baby.
The rest of you. Yeah, Arlo is playing outside.
Should I grab Arlo?
No, okay. I don't think Arlo needs to make a toast. Arlo's in a fragile toddler state right now, so best to leave him happy. But one thing that I just want to say that kind of is crystallizing for me a little bit, just hearing everyone, all of my mom's students speak, and all of it makes total sense to me, right? I hear all of you speak and I say, of course, that's who my mom is. I mean, my mom understands the public and the private distinction, but I can say, at least in this form of mentorship and in this form of making you feel as though your contributions are important and your opinions are important and your voice is important. That is the principal thing that my mom has taught me since as early as I can remember. It was just something that I thought was a natural part of being a human being. As a 5-year-old child, I probably had a little too much of a sense that my views were important, but she translated that from how she uses it in the public life also into how she raised me, and into how she viewed me. So it is a very principal part of who she is as a person and how she understands people and how she understands needing to honor them. And I think a lot of you know that the work I do is a little different than theory, than when I'm an attorney, and I've been working for the last several years in death penalty litigation. And this has been a really hard it's been a really hard year for those of us in the field of death penalty litigation. It's been a really brutal year, and it's been really hard to sort of keep going. And I see so many of my colleagues who just get so burned out and who have so much trouble sort of identifying what the good is that's left. And I'm realizing, listening to all of you, that I think the vision of the world that I grew up in, the vision of the world that my mom has sort of given me, is a world that is good, and a world that can be good, and a world in which you can do justice and you must do justice. And it's that vision that gives me the strength to push through how awful this last year has been, the sort of terrible things that we see people capable of doing to one another. And it's something that's very crystallized in the work that I do, and something that can be more abstract when you think about it in the context of theory. But I'm realizing that the way that I was raised to see the world, and the way that my mother sees the world, which is a better place than the world we live in, but a place that I still fight for, gives me the strength to fight for that. And that is why I can do this work, and that I consider an incredible gift also. So thank you, Mom, for that. And cheers.
I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. And it is Hanukkah. It's the second day of Hanukkah. It's the Feast of Light, and light will triumph over darkness. Have no fear. It may last. We will go through this period, but it will. And that's a principle. It's a principle. Oh God, I'm so academic. The principle is something, it guides us. It's always counterfactual. There will always be the dark.
Necessarily believe it.
I don't want to get too theological. I was not too religious, but here it is. It all comes out of me. Thank you.
Cheers. He has to go soon, so I want to see, can we squeeze Eduardo in for a few words?
I love to do that. So Shayla, so wonderful to celebrate your work, your persona, the incredible impact that you have had on so many people and on myself personally. I just want to remember two things that I think exemplify your work. One is, I remember being at the World Congress of Philosophy and you welcoming everyone in German, English, Turkish. You might have done it also in Spanish. And I thought, wow, that is so incredible. I think you were the president of the World Congress of Philosophy at the time. The second one is your presidential address at the American Philosophical Association, which I refer in my remarks. And you began with Husserl in order to challenge the Eurocentrism of philosophy. And I just take those 2 moments to reflect on how you personally have embodied a type of cosmopolitanism that created a home for people like me, immigrants, exiles, people with accents, people with interest that have nothing to do with Hegel. And yet you found ways to nurture us. So thank you. Third, I want to celebrate your undisciplined insubordination. You have, I think this was celebrated earlier on. You go all over the place, and you created for us an ability to say, hey, we can read that, we can do that, we should do that. But I also want to thank you for the gift that you have given to critical theory of making it global, cosmopolitan, transnational, and feminist. Critical theory is a tradition that has, unfortunately, has not been cosmopolitan enough, or in personal in gesture, or feminist. And so you taught us that you can be a critical theorist and a feminist, a committed feminist. In practice, in the ways in which we look at the world, feminism in your way is not just an epistemic lens, it's also a project, but it is also something that you do in the way you mentor people. And so personally, thank you so much. And I'm so honored and delighted to be here to celebrate your work and everything else that we will get from you. Thank you.
Thank you. But I just want to say something about that Congress of Philosophy, because there is another person who has worked tirelessly for philosophy in Turkey, Iona Kuchuriadis. It's a difficult name to pronounce. She's Greek-Turkish origin, and she was actually the president of that moment.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to take false honor. Iona Kuchuriadis is the translator of many of Kant's texts also into Turkish. But yes, thank you, Eduardo. You've been one of my students since the New School, and it was this dialogue that you brought Latin American thinkers. I thought I haven't always had the time for the incorporation, but I have always heard the voices, and I have tried to keep that in mind. So thank you over the years.
Okay, so thank you so much, Eduardo. So if everyone's okay with it, we are at time, but I was thinking maybe we could take one last toast if everyone is okay with that. And I'm so sorry to everybody else who offered. Please, again, one more time, send it to us by email. We'd really love to see it. And even if you did make the toast in person and you want to rewrite it for us in an email, we'd also love that, just to have a collection and a memory. So so the last one I'll go to is Ken Baines, and then we'll let Shayla wrap it up. Oh, you're muted.
Okay, well, thank you. I'll be very brief. This was a thoroughly enjoyable day. Of course, when I began with Shayla's first bad habit, I had no idea what we would be talking about or what Shayla's presentation would be on. I hope everyone understood Caroline Emke's point about the difficulty of sometimes communicating irony through the internet. I am a huge fan of Hegel's, and I have learned so much from Shayla beginning in that seminar at Boston University in philosophy of right. And of course, I think that bad habit explains a lot of why there's such a huge gathering and such a range of interest here tonight. I also had no idea that there was a kind of private or secret seminar on Hegel with grad students at Yale, and that was such a pleasure for me to hear about and to see that that tradition has continued. I'm also, it's my second point, just astonished at the breadth and diversity of interests and of students that Sheila's had. I was at the beginning and not always familiar with who came later. This conference, this gathering, though, was not in person, reminded me of only one other such event I've been at. It was way back in 89 or 90. It was at the Habermas Conference for the English translation of the public sphere that Craig Calhoun had organized down at UNC. Sheila was there, Tom was there, Nancy was there. But more importantly, there were a bunch of people whose work I had never heard of, working in media, working in sociology, working in feminist theory, working in history, Jeff Ely at Michigan. This conference mirrors that in terms of the diversity and scope, and that is such a testimony to Sheila's own scholarship, this resistance of disciplinary boundaries, and the impact that she has had outside of not only philosophy, but outside through political theory. And that is such a pleasure and delight to see. I've been taking notes, email people about work that I have to read and topics that I have to pursue. And I thank Sheila for that and for that influence, and for you, her students, and the organizers of this really wonderful event. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Now, I have something that tags very well. Ken,
I was going to give you the last word, Sheila. So can I just hand it over to you to close us out and give us some last words? And so, yes. So all I'll say is I just wanted to say another thank you to the organizers before I pass it back to Sheila. I was a shadow organizer in all of this. It was all Stefan, Nika, and Nishan, and they've been working their butts off. And I just am so thankful to them and for propping me up and making me look like I helped out a bunch when they know they did it all. Oh, so thank you to them and to everybody for coming. I just love feeling a part of this community. This has been a great day for me. And so for coming on Zoom in this weird climate and popping your beautiful faces in is really a joy. And so I'm going to let Sheila close out the conference and she will send you on your way. So off to you.
Carolina says you have to swim on you were really, look, these are dark times, hard times. American democracy is hanging by a shoestring or by the mind of some judges, but I do want to send you off on a funny note. And if I weren't sitting there in the parking lot of the library worrying about my computer running out, I had a dream last night. And you might say, oh man, she's getting old. What is she going to talk about? I dreamt about John Rawls, Jack Rawls. And Ken is laughing. He was one of the first dissertations that Tom and I directed on Rawls and Habermas. For some people, this is the moment when, critical theory, but what was my dream? I didn't even tell my husband. John Rawls and I were going to concerts. And he was telling me what concerts we were going to. I know Ken is saying, what's happening? It's just like he listed about 4 or 5 concerts. And I'm listening, and I'm saying, no, I can't. I'm sorry, I have work to do. That's it. I will leave it up to you to parse it. I have no personal or intimate relationship to Rawls, just the deepest respect. We've only talked personally twice at Harvard, but somehow there is something about this conference that also that there's been this dialogue, this conversation, and but I still have work to do. I don't know what this means. So you can go and think about it. I thought it was very amusing. I'm surprised that you're not laughing.
We are, you just can't hear us because we're all muted.
Anyways, thank you all.
Maybe we can actually all unmute ourselves and cause complete Zoom chaos by sending Shayla.
Hey,
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
What were the concerts?
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Shayla.
Bye.
Jay, Shayla,
Bye.
thank you.
Thank